Emily and Thomas McCarthy had been married for only 6 months when they received the letter. It was addressed from an old lawyer's office in a small town they had never heard of. The letter detailed that Thomas's great-aunt, a woman he barely knew, had passed away, leaving them her mansion. The property, known as Blackwood Manor, was vast and secluded, perched atop a hill overlooking a dense forest. Excited by the prospect of starting their life in such a grand home, the couple decided to move in immediately. The manor was as beautiful as it was old, with intricate woodwork, grand staircases, and rooms filled with antique furniture. However, there was an undeniable chill in the air, and shadows seemed to linger a little too long in the corners of the rooms. From the very first night, Emily felt uneasy. As they settled into their new home, strange occurrences began to plague them. At first it was small things, the sound of footsteps echoing through the hallways when no one else was around, the flickering of lights, and the occasional cold breeze despite the windows being tightly shut. Thomas dismissed these occurrences as the quirks of an old house, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. One evening, while exploring the attic, Emily found an old portrait of a woman dressed in noble attire. Her eyes were dark and piercing, almost alive with intensity. The back of the portrait was inscribed with the name Lady Eleanor Blackwood. Emily showed it to Thomas, who remembered hearing stories about her. Eleanor was the original owner of the manor, a noble woman known for her beauty and cruelty. Legend had it that she had died under mysterious circumstances, and her spirit was said to haunt the mansion. As days turned into weeks, the haunting became more pronounced. Emily began to have vivid nightmares of Lady Eleanor standing over her, whispering in a language she couldn't understand. The nightmares were so intense that Emily often woke up screaming, drenched in sweat. Thomas, too, started to experience unsettling visions, catching glimpses of Eleanor in mirrors and windows, always watching. One stormy night, the couple decided to confront the haunting head-on. Armed with candles and determination, they ventured into the basement, the place where the presence felt strongest. The air was thick with moisture and the smell of decay. As they descended the creaking stairs, their candles flickered, casting eerie shadows on the damp stone walls. In the far corner of the basement, they found a locked door. The key was nowhere to be found, but Thomas, driven by frustration and fear, broke it open with a crowbar. Behind the door was a small room, its walls lined with old books and dusty artifacts. In the center of the room stood an ornate chest. Inside the chest, they found a collection of letters, journals, and a peculiar locket containing a miniature portrait of Lady Eleanor. As Emily read through the journals, the horrifying truth was revealed. Lady Eleanor had been a practitioner of dark magic, using her powers to control and torment those around her. She had been betrayed and killed by her own servants, who had grown tired of her cruelty. However, her spirit had remained trapped in the manor, bound by a curse that required her to find a new host to continue her reign of terror. Emily and Thomas realized that the nightmares and visions were not just hauntings but attempts by Eleanor to possess Emily. The locket, a conduit of her power, had to be destroyed to break the curse. As Emily prepared to smash the locket, a chilling wind blew through the room, extinguishing their candles. In the darkness, they heard Eleanor's voice, filled with anger and desperation. "You cannot escape me. This is my home, and you are mine." Ignoring the fear that gripped her, Emily smashed the locket with a heavy bookend. A blood-curdling scream echoed through the basement as the locket shattered into pieces. The wind died down, and an eerie silence filled the air. For a moment, they thought it was over, but then the ground beneath them began to tremble, and the walls seemed to close in. The spirit of Lady Eleanor, no longer bound by the locket, sought one final act of vengeance. Shadows twisted and danced around them, and the temperature dropped to an unbearable cold. In a final, desperate attempt to save themselves, Thomas and Emily ran towards the exit. The basement seemed to stretch on forever, the door a distant point they could never reach. Just as they were about to give up hope, the door burst open, and they stumbled into the safety of the hallway. Breathing heavily, they looked back at the basement door, now firmly shut. The house was quiet, too quiet. They left Blackwood Manor that night, never to return. The mansion stood empty, a monument to its dark past. Years later, the manor was purchased by a wealthy family unaware of its history. On their first night, the new owners heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoing through the halls, and felt the icy breath of Lady Eleanor on their necks. The curse of Blackwood Manor lived on, forever claiming those who dared to call it home,